around here. There we go. There we go. Okay, here we are, super late. Sorry guys, we were just doing a live over on the channel of Summer Huntington where we were discussing our seminar coming up for September 22nd. That seminar will be at FlowShala in Bellingham, Washington. If you want to sign up for it, it is on her events tab on FlowShala.com. And that seminar is going to be no staff. It's just going to be heavy clubs and mace. And it's just going to be back and forth between heavy clubs and mace for 2.5 days. Sound is good. Excellent. Sorry about that. We had a lot of technical difficulties this week. I'm behind on videos. I know. I try to get out at least 5 a week, and I think I've only gotten out 2 this week. We're doing a lot of traveling right now, and I'm going to travel again in a day or 2 here. Right now, I'm in downtown Los Angeles at probably the coolest little Airbnb I've stayed at in a long time. It's called the Leopard Valentine, and it's two blocks from LA Live on the other side of the freeway. I didn't even know this neighborhood existed, and I've lived in this town for 20 years. And it's got a cast iron pan, and there's a place to buy steaks right down the street, so you can have cast iron and steaks. And it's this old 1920s building with the sweet ass old iron tub, and just, I love it. It's great. But we're going to be going to Atlanta, where I'm going to be taking a seminar next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then I will be back out here for a couple of days before flying to Seattle. After Seattle, I'll fly back to here again. And then I'm going to go with a bunch of people to Wasteland Weekend, which is basically the Mad Max version of stuff. I'm going to see if I can get my big black truck, and we're going to do all that stuff. Somebody enjoyed the YouTube live. Senile Canuck. Gosh, you guys have great names. Worked out with clubs while watching. That's good. Excellent. Over on the other live, Summer's Live, we were talking about kettlebells and clubs, and this is something that I wanted to start this with. Kettlebells and clubs are equally as important. There's been a long battle between club people and kettlebell people about what's better, and that originally came from them fighting over market share back in the days of RKC and Dragon Door versus club guys over at Circular Strength Training, and they both were trying to convince everybody that they were the most right, and that you only did one or the other. And that has always been a failing strategy for both of them, because they're equally as important. Clubs cannot raise your heart rate the same way that kettlebells can. Double kettlebells, single kettlebell 4 times. So you start with kettlebells, if you lay out kettlebells, you start with your swings, your clean and press, then you go to your Turkish get up, then you go to like your deck squats, your front squats, then you go to snatch. And if you work your way through the basic program, the goal is to teach you all the basic movements of kettlebelling so that eventually you can learn to not put the weight down. And then I like to have people start working on building up to at least half marathon time. And then if you start with one kettlebell and you start learning to not put it down for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 14 minutes, 16 minutes, get up to 30 minutes. Now you're doing cardio, but you're doing it, and your goal is to do that with at least a 24K, 30 minutes with a 24K without putting it down. And now that you've built up a very, very good level of basic work capacity. And you can make that infinitely harder by just turning it into snatches. But that does straight up and down, does heart rate, does cross-body stabilization. The thing that kettlebells do not do well is throwing patterns. They don't do it nearly as well as clubs do because of the shape of the weight. Clubs, on the other hand, train casting patterns better than anything else. Casting patterns are your basic patterns of swinging levers. So you still have your swings, you still have your cleans, you still have your squats, you have all these things. I put 8 families of movements in clubs instead of the 6 in kettlebells because you also have all these casting patterns in there. And there is no way to use a kettlebell as well as a club for pure casting patterns and for mimicking the use of tool levers. So I consider kettlebells and clubs to be of equal importance. And if you got to a 50-pound kettlebell and you learn to not put it down for 30 minutes, I think that that's a very good place for people to be at. For ladies, that could be a 30-pound kettlebell. But then in the club world, we want people to start around the 15, 10 maybe if you're a smaller frame or if you're a lady, and then build up. Ladies towards 30s, men towards 50s, and get up to a point where you can operate a 50-pound club. If those two things I think are equally important, and I think that you pick a program to start with and you start there, but you can't just leave out the other one forever. Cole says that kettlebells are a little bit more equal than clubs. See, there's always going to be these jokes out there, but I don't believe it. You know, I think that a 50-pound shield cast is incredibly important in training, in the world of training. I think that there's nothing else, no other type of piece of equipment that mimics that action. And I do put mace under clubs, because if you can do clubs, you can do mace, but it doesn't necessarily go the other way. And it can go the other way, but it doesn't go the other way as easily as it goes from clubs to mace, because clubs are your basic movements of mace. So if you take your movement of clubs and you ramp up the weight, then mace will get easier forever. Update your Teespring with a shirt on display today. Yes, that's a great idea. I just never get around to it because I'm so busy. But you are absolutely correct. I need to put this t-shirt on our Teespring and get that operating correctly. Over time here, we're going to get some questions coming in. I'm going to start talking about the seminar until questions come in. The upcoming seminar is going to go back and forth between heavy club swinging and mace swinging, and that is by design. You do heavy clubs because it's heavier, and then you'll do more complicated movements with mace, and then we will cycle back and forth between those two ideas, because that's an easy way to get people to not stop moving, but to keep them working on their movement patterns the way that we would like them to work on their movement patterns. We were talking about the importance of seminars over on the other live, and the question came up, how many seminars have I been to, or how much money have I spent on it? And I am a guy who's been going to seminars for years, because that's how I set a goal for myself back in 2005 to go to a minimum of 2 seminars, 2 to 3 seminars, 2 to 3 day seminars per year, and whatever topic. So I started with like kettlebells, RKC, 2 American Kettlebell Club, World Kettlebell Club, the Mike Mahler seminars back in the day. Not my favorites, but you learned a lot of stuff anyway. Those ones had way too much focus on like lifting really big heavy weights, because it was really a weird version of strength training that he was coaching, but you learned about all these different things. I expanded out into club seminars, and I've been to, 10 of these, 10 club seminars. I used to go twice a year for several years to club seminars to work on technique and to get better over time, and you kept training for new levels. But it doesn't just have to be these types of seminars. I've also go to motorcycle seminars, supermoto seminars, martial arts seminars, Krav Maga seminars, jiu-jitsu seminars. One of the big things that I did a lot of when I was working in movies was go to tactical firearms seminars, because there's so many versions of tactical firearms seminars. You have walking and shooting introduction, you have shooting out of cars, you have room clearing, you have multiple person room clearing, you have night vision seminars. All of these different types of seminars teach you different things about how people learn, how to coach, how do you organize information. And the most important thing that they teach you is they teach you what you don't know. You learn what you don't know. So I think seminars are a great thing that people should do over time. And I think that no matter what your level, you should pick a seminar and go to it. Doesn't have to be my seminar. If you're a mountain biker, if you ride bicycles to work, there are mountain bike seminars. There's a school called like Ninja Mountain Bike, and they have seminars all over the country. Go to that. If you ride a bicycle at all, go to that class. Why? Doesn't matter if you're going to be a downhill mountain bike guy or not, you will learn something about cycling that you didn't know before. Horseback riding, go to a seminar. Seminars have always been big in the horseback world because there's so many different types of horseback riding, and there are different specialists in different things. I was over the summer, I went to Equine Affair in Columbus, Ohio. I think that was it, Equine Affair. And you sit down and you watch people take seminars, and you learn by watching people take seminars. And so me and my mom, who has been a horse coach her whole life, sat down and watched dressage seminars on how people are taking instruction, how they interact with the horse, how the coach talks to the person and talks to the crowd at the same time. I think seminars are very much underplayed, and I think that people think that they don't have the money or the time to do it. When I started going, I had no money in the bank, and I spent, I think, $4,000 on my first seminar, RKC, between the weekend cost, travel, and like hotel and everything else. It was twice as much money as I actually had in the bank at that time. And I put it on a credit card, but the stuff I learned at that seminar changed the way I thought forever. And that's the point. There's something that happens when you go to seminars. I very much compare this to like Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, only it's specifically to learning. You leave where you're from, you go to a place that you're unfamiliar with, you don't really know what's happening, you meet a bunch of people there, you acquire those friends, you work your way through a bunch of problems over the course of several days. The way your brain function changes, the way you think about things changes one step at a time. It's difficult, it's hard on you. You learn to overcome it or you learn to survive it, and then at the end of it, you go back home and you complete a circle. It's the same way they write movies, heroes' journeys in movies. You're just doing it to yourself for learning. So you should always endeavor to go to seminars, even if you don't think you're ready for them, or if they're terrifying. If they're terrifying, you should definitely go, because being terrified is part of the process of learning, and I don't think enough people acknowledge that being terrified is a thing that happens. If you're not terrified to go to a jiu-jitsu seminar, you're just not thinking. You need to go places and do things that you're not good at so you can learn what you don't know, so you can figure out what you need to be better at, and you can reorganize your priorities over time about what is the important part and what stuff doesn't need to be there. That's something you learn a lot when you go to like horse classes. Like, you don't need that fancy saddle. You just need a saddle. Or you don't need a saddle at all. You need to understand what you really don't know, and then you need to learn to not try to supplement it with fancy gear. You need to just get the stuff that works and lasts. And that's something that you learn in like tactical classes, tactical firearms classes for sure. Everybody thinks that they're going to buy a better piece of equipment and then that's going to make them better at turning corners, whereas that's not true. You should be able to take something stock out of the box and use it, even without sights on it, and have it work because your fundamentals are so good. You should be able to use any equipment over time. When I teach sword stuff, I don't teach specific types of sword stuff. I teach the basics of machete fighting, because if you understand the basics of machete fighting, you understand the basics of all types of sword. And people will argue with me about that all day, and that's fine. But there is we need to get people away from the idea that they need fancier equipment to take the place of skill, and that you would rather spend time and money learning and then going places to learn in order to figure out what you don't know, and then you can figure out that you didn't need all that other equipment or stuff over time. So let's start answering some questions here. Somebody chiming in from Argentina. Thanks for the work, gracias for the tutorials. Argentina has the Gaucho Derby, which I'm very upset that I'm not allowed to participate in. The Gaucho Derby is an outgrowth of the Mongolian Derby. The Mongolian Derby is a race across the Mongolian steppe on Mongolian horses. My friends, Can-Am Nightmares, just participated in this year's Mongolian Derby because they had, I think, 2 years off because of COVID. And they just competed in that, but I wasn't allowed to go because they weren't allowed to have spectators or crew this year, so it was super light. But there's a weight limit on how big a person can be to participate that. And when I saw the Gaucho Derby, which I think takes place across the Argentinian mountains, 1,000 miles, I was like, well, I'll be able to do that. They're bigger horses, they're cowboy horses. Nope, I'm still not allowed to compete. I'd have to lose something like 80 pounds to compete. Now, so apparently only people who are 5'2" and weigh absolutely nothing can compete in this, which I think is pretty not Gaucho-like. Gaucho being like the South American cowboys from that area who used to have 50-pound saddles and 70 pounds worth of gear on the horse, plus them, plus all of their durable gear. So I'm a little upset at the Gaucho Derby about that, but hello to Argentina. That's my Argentina rant. I'm just generally upset about that I'm not allowed to compete in that race because I'm just way too big. Here's an interesting question. Persmek Kerpiza. I don't know how to say that. That is obviously some type of Eastern European name. I can't put my arms straight above my head. What to do? So that means that there's lack of shoulder extension. So there's a whole series of exercises for that. If you're using kettlebells, it starts with halos and alternating halos with your eyes straight ahead, where you move a weight around your head. If you look down at any point, then you're trying to not extend your shoulder. You're moving your head to cheat the movement. I would encourage people to start, who can't lift their arm all the way up overhead, to start with halos and then move to clubs and then go to two-handed shield casts and then go eventually to single arm shield cast around the head. Stand all the way up, eyes looking straight out in front. Learn to extend the shoulder. Do that almost nothing else does is it stretches it while it's under load. It has an effect on the tendons and ligaments in your shoulders. So if your shoulders are trashed and you can't extend your arms overhead, then you would start with kettlebells, short lever, move to clubs, medium lever, move to mace, long lever, and you would work on the halo to shield cast, to single arm shield cast, to mace 360, to mace single arm shield cast, which is a single arm 360 progression over time in order to help move the shoulder back to extension. And then you would work on like kettlebell floor press, half get-ups, and through the reverse Turkish get-up progression from there in order to help people who can't lift their arm all the way up overhead. That is a shoulder extension issue, so everything needs to be moving the shoulder around extension, and then the stretch would be puppy dog stretch for your cool down. Todd Murray, are there any club exercises that open up hips for an obese man? Yes, all of them. I'm unclear on what you mean by open up hips. Are you talking about getting a side split? Are you talking about standing up straight? Are you talking about extending the hip? Or are you talking about front split? Like those are it's a very interesting series of questions right there. When people are overweight, we tell them to start with club swinging, and we have them use an extremely light weight, and we have them do inside circles, outside circles, and shield cast, because if they have a large belly, they can rotate and move their belly out of the way of their arm with single arm club swinging. And then as they do club swinging, they will fire all of their structural muscles, which help them learn to stand up better over time. Their glutes will learn to fire as they go up in weight. Every time they do a rep, their abs will fire. We start building them up through half centuries, which is 50 total reps for inside circle, outside circle, and shield cast. And then at the end of the first cycle, we make a choice whether we go up in weight or we double the reps based on equipment. Usually we like to go up in weight and repeat the idea again until gentlemen get to at least 15-pound club and ladies to at least 10. And then we like to go, then we can start adding in the full century cycle so that you go from 300 total reps. So half centuries, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. 50 inside, 50 inside, 50 outside, 50 outside, 50 shield, 50 shield. And we double that to get to 100 inside, 100 inside, 100 outside, 100 outside, 100 shield, 100 shield. 600 total reps for every muscle in your body, in your core, in your glutes, and in your legs to help people learn to stand up. And then we move towards pendulum, which cause people to start using more legs, side hip snap leg drive. after that. But the question is, what does opening up the hips mean? For most people, that would mean getting into half kneeling position, putting a knee down on the ground, making your spine vertical, and learning to do shield casts from the half kneeling position. But that only comes after you can already do your inside, your outside, and your shield with a 15-pound club without putting the weight down. But moving towards half kneeling is what we're looking for with shield cast. Mark Artigas Vale, question. I would like to ask you if you plan to do running technique videos. I would love to do running technique videos. I just don't have a camera person or a way to film it. And I haven't been running in the last several years, so I would need to go through my whole running program as well in order to make my technique good enough to put on camera, because right now my running technique is not good at all, because I've been focusing on just doing kettlebells and clubs. My running technique's okay. I can do a 400-meter sprint, but it's not like it's good enough to put on camera. I have a friend, Jenny Pacey, over in the UK, and she absolutely just destroys my running technique. But she is a world-class sprinter. She was on Team Great Britain, so like her running technique is way better. So I will eventually do techniques on running videos. I just don't have the, I need a camera person or a smooth gimbal to go with that or something like that, and I just don't have a way to set up that much complexity into my videos at this point. Clive James, question. Have you seen the YouTube channel Combatives in Kettlebells? No, I have not. Only post shorts. It's like David Blaine with kettlebells. He's just throwing them around. Is this that crazy Russian guy who's doing all the weird, super weird movement pattern stuff? I've recently seen this guy who's doing all this really interesting stuff. It's nowhere near what the basics are. I consider it like level 99.999 plus. There's a lot of stuff. You can do anything once you've mastered the basics. There's this guy I've been watching, and it comes up for me on Instagram of like reels, and he's doing all these really interesting movement patterns. But you can tell this guy's like year like 20 or 15 of training. Like the guy looks like he went through professional athletic training for years. So I liked all that stuff that's out there. I love all that complexity that's being done. People put that out there because it looks super cool and it gets a lot of views, but your average person should not be doing a lot of that stuff at all. If they did, it would kill them. But if you're at year 15 or you have so much professional athletic training, then sure, you can do whatever you want. And I encourage people to invent stuff. Like there's certainly guys out there that are inventing extremely, extremely cool movement patterns. They're all out there. Combatives in Kettlebells is a Welsh guy. Okay. I'll have to look this up. This is a different guy then. Do you have any, let's go down to the bottom and I'll work my way back up. Juicy Stain. Question. Do you have any suggestions for paddle fitness endurance for surfing? Yes, everything in kettlebells and clubs. Paddle fitness, think standing up and you're paddling outside your body frame. So there's a whole series of movements called Discobolus of Myron, based on a Greek statue, the Discobolus of Myron statue. Yeah, that would be the stuff. But anything that causes the base of your core to fire is proper. So all club swinging programs will be useful for that. All club swinging programs. Learning to do mills, learning to do two-handed mills, learning to do the mill squat program will make you infinitely better at stand-up paddling. Infinitely better. All kettlebelling will make you better at stand-up paddling. You're standing up with kettlebells, you're swinging weight between your legs, cross-body stabilization, you're catching on one side. Paddling should be relatively easy for you after that, or muscularly it will be easy for you. It might not be neurologically easy to stand on a rocking board, but that's something that you can work on as well in a ton of different ways. But if you just did kettlebells and clubs, and you did your basics, and then you move towards outside swing clean patterns, then you're fully prepared to do paddling. Same thing is true of surfing. Surfing's a little bit harder because of that reach up, pull down movement, but anything in the snatch pattern will help prepare you for that, and anything in the club pattern will help prepare you for that. If you want to get really good at it, and you wanted to train it off, then you would take, you do your kettlebells and clubs, and then you would take a Concept 2 ski erg and you would lay it down flat, and you would take the floorboards off of it and you would mount a surfboard to the top, and you could then do your pull downs and your alt pulls with a Concept 2 in order to train the actual time frame. I know that paddling out can be just absolutely awful depending on where you're at. And most people have short-term muscular endurance, and they can paddle for a minute or two, but if you're out someplace far where it's a long paddle, where it's 10 minutes out past the breakers, then you would like to train for that in some other way, and there's Concept 2 rower ways to do that, or Concept 2 skier ways to do that, to work on that endurant shoulder pull down, because that is the thing that fries everybody, is getting out past the breakers. Where's that? I was in Morocco and I was paddling. What beach is that? There's one great surf spot on the coast of Morocco, but the breaks are way out there. I mean, they're hundreds of yards out, and so it's just a long paddle to get out there to actually get out into range. And then, it ends up being 5 or 6 minutes of straight paddling if you're pulling effectively, and that's hard for most people. Most people are going to frag out at like 2 minutes. So learning to not put a kettlebell down for like 6 minutes long cycle or reverse half snatch, snatch up, go down, and just do that for time helps you build up the muscle pattern, but it's not specific. So the specific thing would be the Concept to lay it down, mount a board above it, or just a bench above it, and work on your alternating pattern, because that is a very specific type of muscle firing, and you would like to build your way up to 2,000 meters or something on that at least. It should take you 8 minutes, but that's much more expensive. Hold on a sec, guys. Hold on a sec here. I'm getting messages from a client right now, and let me respond to them quickly about this upcoming meeting. Let's find another question here. Are kettlebell workouts, this is a great question. Samuel Garcia, are kettlebell workouts good, the basics, good, bad for people who have scoliosis? They are extremely good. Extremely good. So scoliosis, imbalance, and muscles on either side of your spine, all of your single arm club work and kettlebell work is fantastic for people with scoliosis, because you're going to be starting to pull your body back by doing movement patterns, real movement patterns on either side of the body. So people who have scoliosis who do simple single kettlebell or single arm club will get much better. They will do things that none of the therapy you've ever done has managed to pull off. Because you're doing hundreds and hundreds of reps, it's over a long period of time, and you can start with a lightweight and you can build to a heavyweight. I can't think of a better way to train somebody with scoliosis than kettlebells, single kettlebell, single club, and single mace. I can't think of anything better. 100%. You're gonna need to start light, and you're gonna have to run more programs than other people. You'll have to run a program twice before you go up in weight. The smaller the weight jump, the better. But you already have scoliosis, so you're already, it will do more for you than anything I think would ever do for you, no matter what other things you have done. I could not say enough stuff about people with scoliosis doing single kettlebell work, single club work, single mace work. I can't think of anything better. Michael Cesar, kettlebell question. After getting 32 kilogram clean and press, what should replace it? I'm already doing Turkish get up. Should you do clean and press reloaded? Absolutely. Clean and press reloaded is the more complex version of clean and press. So you're just adding in squats and all these other things in different places to make the program better. So if you were already at 32K, you would drop down to 22K, and you would start ramping your way back up on the reloaded protocol. and then you would run it all the way back up to 32K for there. There's going to be a big down phase because you're used to working with 32, but that's fine. You go down in weight, you add more complexity. You're going to give your tendons and your ligaments more time to adapt, and then you're going to run it all the way back up to 32K. Once you get up to 32K, then you're going to start over and you're going to go back down to time under tension, and you're going to work on not putting the weight down. And you're going to start with 8 minutes of not putting the weight down. You'll go back to 16K and you'll build up to 30 minutes. And then you will build up to 32K where you don't put the weight on the ground for 30 minutes. That's another 5 years of training right there, done. You can always add more complexity to training, and then you can always take the breaks out. How would you program for a guitar player and singer? I wouldn't really change a lot. Guitar players tend to be super rounded on one side because they're wrapped around their guitar. So it would be lots of clean and press in order to balance out that overhead. And there would be a lot of mace swinging. Specifically, there would be a lot of mace swinging 360s for singers. Shield cast, all of that stuff is going to cause your diaphragm to fire, and you're going to build up internal diaphragm endurance, right? So you're training your core to endure. The way that you would breathe for breathing behind the shield is different than the way that a singer breathes, depending on if you're doing like operatic technique or you're doing your diaphragm breathing. The way that you would train anything of that would be maces and clubs, but you would start with mace 360s probably, and you would build up to at least 10 minutes. And if you get to 10 minutes, then you're going to branch into a heavy light cycle where you're going to start going up in weight and you're going to start adding more time. Your lightweight goal for 360s is going to be in the 20-minute range. And then you're going to start building into your mill and reverse mill protocols from there, because once again, you're going to be learning to expand and contract your rib cage, which is, it's everything in singing. And you're going to build up that internal core endurance in order to be able to sing better, longer, and hold your notes longer, because you will literally have the internal diaphragmatic strength in order to do it. And you would work on your 360s, and you would originally start with mouth breathing. But then once you got to 10 minutes, you would go back and you would do only nasal breathing for that. And build up to 10 minutes again, and then go heavier weight and go longer in time. And that will help you learn to breathe much better, and that will help you learn to stand up, and then you'll sing better. Shortest answer for singing. My sister was a classically trained opera singer, so I'm very familiar with singing. Diaphragmatory. Is that the word? That's the word. Somebody says diaphragmatory. Question, has Wildman ever outgrown the patchy beard? No, sorry guys, too much native blood. Or that's the theory in my family. Nobody on my mother's side of the family has any facial hair. This is going to be it forever. It's never going to get beyond this. No other males on my mom's side of the family have any facial hair, and my dad is like a mountain man with a huge bushy beard, and I'm halfway in between those two things. So no, I will not outgrow my patchy beard. And I'm too lazy to shave all the time. I shave when I shave my head, and we just call it equal. Ben Semish, outside of club mace swinging that he's already doing, how can he work on rebuilding his arches so his foot fires correctly? There's a whole series of exercises that people do to do that. They're just super annoying and nobody does them. So I tend to have people just swing club and mace because now they have something to do. 10 minutes of club swinging. So the thing is, better than 10 minutes of just contracting your foot. So what people do is they put a towel on the ground, they have their heel on the ground, and they reach out with their toes and they pull the towel underneath their feet. They stretch it back out, and then they do it again. And they pull their foot in, contracting the arch of their foot, and it causes their ankle to stand straight up. That's one of the basic ones that people do. Another thing that they could do once they have semi-decent arches is when they're doing their club swinging, stand on an inclined plane a slight inclined plane and start all of your training over again, your feet absolutely have to be pointed straight ahead or slightly in if you do that technique. And then they put everything on stretch, and then they learn to fire their arches again, and then that helps as well. So answer 1, do the towel technique where you pull your foot in. Answer 2, start over with your club and mace swinging by standing on an inclined plane. Coaching question. Advice for a beginner personal trainer wanting to focus on kettlebells and clubs. This is from Kenjutsu Jiu-Jitsu Guy. How much experience should one have before they try to teach? Well, you should know what you're talking about first. I'm not big personal trainers. You will learn how to coach by coaching. So you should start with your swing program, and you should run that swing program with at least 3 to 5 weights. Then you can just start coaching that basic swing program right away. And then you need to have your list of coaching cues and things that you need to look for. Most important things: pointing your feet straight ahead, having your feet underneath your shoulders, standing all the way up at the top. You can start coaching stuff very soon. I'm very different from a lot of type of coaches, and they say, you can't teach martial arts until you have 10 years of experience or something like that. I don't think any of that's true. I think that 1/3 of learning to master any topic is coaching. So the sooner you start coaching, the sooner you will figure out how to identify what's wrong and then how to help people get better at it. You'll also learn what you're not doing by coaching other people. If you see something but you can't explain what's wrong, then you're going to have to analyze it in your own head to figure it out. So I think as a beginning trainer, you should start coaching it very, very soon, because what else are you coaching? Like, if the first thing as a personal trainer that you should teach people is 10 minutes of swings. I don't care if you work in a gym or not. Bring your own kettlebell. Every one of your clients should be doing 10 minutes of swings at the beginning of their workout. You can set a timer and do 40 minutes of bench press after that, but every client should be doing swings. If you're seeing them 3 days a week, that is swings 3 days a week for 10 minutes. Ramp them up in weight, do whatever you want afterwards, right? You set a timer, you could do a 2-minute timer and do 10, and do chest press and flies after that for 5 rounds, and then go immediately to pull up and rear row after that. Now you've got another 10 minutes, you could do shoulders. You could put on an incline chest press and do lateral raises for 10 minutes after that. That first part, the swings part, is the most important part. Everything else is fine after that. If you're seeing them 4 days a week, then you would do swings twice a week, clean and press twice a week, and you could do whatever you wanted after that. You could do swings at that beginning of that one program, then after that you could do split squats or whatever. The sooner you start coaching swings, the better you will be as a trainer and as a coach, and the more your clients will get from you, and the more they will want to come back and give you more money. So you start coaching it now. Start coaching it now. If you've run the program through 3 times yourself, start coaching it. Where was that at? Question. Alexander Kralj. 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 Question about double one-handed club bell work with different club weights. So that's putting a club in each hand and doing one club in each hand and doing it with different weights. You can do whatever you want. I don't advocate for that much, but if that's the weights you have, sure, just do an equal amount of time on both sides. I consider double club work to be much more advanced for most people because it's 2 independently moving objects, and when you make one of them heavier than the other one, now you have asymmetrical body firing. So I would put that at like year 5, but that's just me. But if you want to try it, go for it. Just make sure you're doing an equal amount of time with a heavy club on each side, and repeat everything over twice with the heavy and the light. You can do whatever you want. If that's what you have available to you, doing double club work and learning to not put the clubs down is an excellent way to get ripped. It's just very, very hard on most people. Most people don't have the movement patterns to support it. You can do it, sure. I mean, I don't do it anymore. I went through a whole phase where I worked on that like 10 years ago. After I went through the whole thing, I just thought that the risk level was too high to teach it that way if people didn't have a ton of other experience. If you were a coach, I would say I wouldn't coach that until they could do their two-handed program with 30 pounds for ladies and 50 pounds for men. And I wouldn't teach that until they could do single arm mills with a 20 for ladies and at least a 30 for men. And then you can go back and you could work on all of that stuff. Sure, it's a great idea. It's super hard. And you can do an infinite amount of stuff, but that's fun. There's an infinite amount of stuff you can do in kettlebells and clubbing. The question is, how do you get there without getting killed? Peter Osborne is starting kettlebell sport training. Do you see a problem with using two-hand club mill squat program for GP, for general physical preparedness? This will be my third run-through of two-handed club program. Yeah, I think the two-handed club program is an excellent opposite to kettlebell sport training. In kettlebell sport training, you're going to be working a lot on, what do you have? You have your jerk, you have your snatch, and you have your long cycle, single arm long cycle, double long cycle. You notice what's not in any of that is full squats or rotating. So two-handed club program, the mill squat program, throw it in twice a week, and then the rest of the time focus on your sport technique, I think is an excellent overall strategy to keeping you from becoming too sport technique shaped. A lot of people, when they go into kettlebell sport technique, throw everything else out, and they kind of lose an ability to turn very well, and a lot of stuff gets really rusty outside of that program, and they end up with a lot of mobility issues and therefore probably pain. Running the mill squat program in conjunction with sport training will 90% solve a lot of that stuff on accident, just by making sure you're still rotating equally both ways, and you're doing your shield cast, which is firing your core in a different way than long cycle, and you're tying all that into squats. 100%, I would leave it in 2 days a week. John Thomas, here's a gym question. If you have access to a gym, would you recommend phasing between training styles? Kettlebells, heavy club, mace, bodyweight, barbell, rings, etc. Sure, yeah. Gyms are fun. You know, there's a lot of useless stuff in gyms, but there's also just a lot of fun, weird stuff in gyms. I'm staying here by downtown LA. It's this awesome Airbnb. It's called like the Leopard Valentine or whatever. Did I already talk about this? I think I already talked about this. And it's right by downtown, but not in downtown. It's awesome. And there's a Gold's Gym that I used to go to 20 years ago on 7th and Fig. And I was like, I don't have anything with me. I'm going to go to the Gold's Gym just to check it out. See, you know, it's always fun to go in and see what people are doing in the gym, because it lets you know, like, what programs should you write for people in the gym. Because most people who work out go to gyms. But I went in today and I found a good 44-pound kettlebell, 20K, with a good handle. Most of the kettlebells in there are not great. They're usable for like swings and clean and press and stuff, but like they're not fantastic kettlebells. They're really old. So I found the oldest looking kettlebell in there, just pure cast iron, no seam in the handle, good and smooth all the way around. And it's been used so much that the paint's totally gone. It's just a big oxidized ball of steel. And I set a clock for 22 minutes, and I didn't put it down for 22 minutes. And I was doing a bunch of juggling stuff with it because it's a small, hard-style kettlebell. And then after that, I just went and did a bunch of other gym stuff. You can always cycle. The programs that I write are specifically designed to be done with everything else. And you'll notice if you did 10 minutes of swings, you could go do all your other gym shit. If you did your clean and press program, go do all your other gym shit. If you did mill squat, then go do all your other gym shit. And if you did body weight program, that's what I think I'm going to do tomorrow when I go. I think I'm going to run body weight Krav 1, the 2010 for 40 minutes, and then I'll go do a bunch of other, I'll do all the back machines or something. And I'll set a timer I'll put 2 minutes on the clock, and I'll put two machines, whatever two machines are next to each other. I'll do 30 seconds on one, 30 seconds on the other, take a 2-minute break, and do it 5 times through. And I'll ramp the weight up each time, and I will do as many reps as I can in that 30 seconds. If I get to 12, it's too light. If I can only do 6 in 30 seconds, it's too heavy. And I'll just bounce them around and have fun. Gym training is not real movement training. All the stuff that you should do, the base of your fitness should be movement training. Picking up a kettlebell and just not putting it down for 20 to 30 minutes. Basic movement training. Picking up a mace and not putting it down for 30 minutes. Basic movement training. All the get-up programs. Get up off of the ground. Basic movement training. All the other isolation stuff that's in a gym is all stuff that should be done afterwards. It's the least important stuff, but it can be fun if you haven't done it in a long time. If you do it every day, it gets super boring. But I haven't done like the hammer strength crossover fly machines in years. And I was like, oh, this is fun. It's useless, but it's fun. And it will cause your muscles to fire in a bunch of ways they're not firing with everything else. And it throws in that kicker that you would use if you were training like an actor for a movie. Then that would be great. You would teach them to not put a kettlebell down. You would do kettlebells, clubs, get-ups. And then if you had access to a gym, then you would do all that other useless stuff just to throw in all these kickers that make the body fire in different ways that are not natural. Let's be honest, a hammer strength machine is not natural movement patterns at all. And that's why bodybuilders today don't look like bodybuilders 100 years ago. Because they've created all these machines with all these angles that don't exist in nature. So you can make the muscles fire in weird ways and it causes weird looks. But yeah, I think that you should do all that stuff, and then you should do all of your real training, your kettlebells, your clubs, your mace, your bodyweight, your barbell, your rings, all your movement pattern stuff, and then go do any of the isolation stuff afterwards. Seminar question. Any plans to travel to Colorado and host a seminar on clubs, mace, kettlebells, or self-defense? Easton Training Center in Arvada, Colorado will host if willing. Sure. Let's throw something on the calendar. Text me, message me. When will I be going through Colorado? I got to go get my truck. It's in Salida. Let's do a seminar. Sure, 100%. How about beginning of October, Colorado? I'm going to be driving right through there anyway. So I was supposed to go get my truck. I was supposed to ride my motorcycle from LA to Colorado, but it's been 110 degrees in LA, which means it's 130 degrees across the section of desert I need to ride across. So I was like, I'm not going to ride my motorcycle across that. It's an old bike. You know, I don't want to end up 100 miles from anywhere in 130 degree heat. So I've pushed back that. So I've been staying in LA, but I'm going to be going from here to Atlanta, back to here to Seattle, back to here, to the desert, back to here, and then I'm going to go to Colorado and get that truck. So sure, I'll be out there, whatever. I love Colorado. I'll go to Colorado anytime, especially to teach all the fun stuff. If you guys want to set up, send me a message on Instagram or something, and we can set up a seminar there. That would be fantastic and fun. I love coaching live. The 2 years of lockdown and all that other stuff drove me kind of crazy because I love to coach live. That is what I'm really, really good at. I'm not great at making videos, but I am pretty good to live coach. Why don't you do follow-along videos, 10-minute videos of different exercises? I do follow-along videos. I have tons of follow-along videos. They're all incorporated in programs. Are you saying why don't I do free follow-along videos and put them on YouTube? Because I don't want people to get hurt. When I sell a program, I sell a giant, it's all technique and it's science. The workout that I did today, 22 minutes of kettlebell juggling, I'm not sure I would like to make that a follow-along video. Maybe I will, but for the most part, people need skills to do that. You know, just asking your average person. If I do follow-along videos, people will think that that's what they should do. And I try to get people to start at the beginning and go through the proper learning technique. in order for people to get to the stuff that I currently do. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've been doing kettlebells. 18 years? 18 years I've been doing kettlebells. The stuff that I'm going to do with kettlebells, even on my light day, is probably not what you should be doing. So I have follow-along videos in every program that I myself have produced. There's a follow-along video for the clean and press. It says, do this exactly in this timing, this way. Turkish Get Up Master, which is coming out September 28th. There are 5 giant follow-along videos, but then there are also 35 technique instructional videos. So you can watch all your technique instructional videos so you know what you're doing, you can practice it, then you follow along, then you run it through in a learning pattern, then you understand how to do it. We're trying to get people to be better at the fundamentals. If I did a follow-along aerial video, nobody would be able to do it, right? And how useful is that? It's really just me doing braggadocio, or whatever they call that word. I don't like to do that. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about you, for the most part. So there are follow-along videos. They're just all inside of programs. Friendly reminder about the archery, hunting, and packing program. Don't worry, I'm on it. Hernia question from Greg74. Have you had clients with prior hernias? Yes. Should the max weight goals be different for clubs and kettlebells? Depends on whether or not they've had their surgeries. Had hernia repaired 5+ years ago. Repaired, sewn together, do you get the mesh? Important question. He's doing single arm club 3.5 to 12.5, going well so far. Good. If you've had a hernia, if you've had a giant hole in your abdomen and they've sewn it back together or put mesh in it or whatever, then yeah, you need to start light and work your way back up. I don't know what the upper limit is, but with ADEX clubs, because you have the super small weight jumps, you can really gently load it over time to help it get better. I don't think that there's anything better out there than kettlebells and clubs and mace for hernia, because it's doing the core the way it's supposed to be doing. The core is operating the way it's supposed to be. And now with adjustable clubs and adjustable mace and adjustable kettlebells, you can do the super small jumps and let your body work its way up. If you're doing clean and press program now, you can start with 12K and you can do 13K, 14K, 15K. And it'll take you a long time, 2.5, 3 years, but you probably get way back up over 24K. But the longer the path, if you have an injury like that, the better the overall outcome will be. You're not going to be able to just pick it up and rip stuff off the ground, super heavy weights anymore, or jump weights. You need to be working on that small jump in order to help people adapt. So when I think of training, I have the path for literally everybody on the planet. The smallest jump possible, repeat the basic movement patterns. And that's for people with scoliosis, people with hernias, people who have had brain damage, people who have traumatic brain injury, people who have strokes, all that stuff. The long path is for all of those things, because everything I do is neurological programming with basic human movement patterns. And the more times you repeat it with a smaller jump in weight, the better the overall outcome. The medium path is like the 5-pound jumps in clubs, right? 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. And then the bigger jumps in kettlebells, right? 12, 14, 16, 20, 24, 28. Like, 'cause people in the middle path have less injuries, so they can handle the bigger jump. But oftentimes even they won't survive the bigger jump, the 4K jumps, and the 2K jump would be better over time. Just heard messages go off here. Nope, didn't see one. So yeah, and really big jumps can be done by super strong athletes, but it tends not to work well for anybody. The longer the path for everybody, the better it will always go. Kenny says, grow beans, peas, and potatoes. All right, I agree, 100%. Everybody should be growing their own food or attempting to grow some type of their own food. Depends on what part of the country you live in, but I think everybody should be planting their own gardens and having their own food sources. I think the more control you have over your own food, the more care you will take with your own food. the better your overall diet will get, and the better your health will be. I think that people reconnecting to their fitness and their food is probably the most important thing that people can do in the modern world, because everything in the modern world is so artificial. We live in artificial boxes with artificial temperature control. Most people are wearing artificial fabrics. They're wearing heavy shoes that separate them from the earth, and they're not doing any real movement patterns. So all the stuff I'm trying to do is trying to get people back towards that. We don't talk a lot about growing our own food right now, but that's definitely something that should be talked about more and more and more. I think when I was back in Ohio, I planted, I don't know, it had to be 50 tomato plants and squash plants around my mother's house, out around the farm and everything else. And everybody should be planting stuff. Even if you're not going to eat all of it, all those plants go back into contributing to the bees and the birds and everything else that's out there that needs food. I think monocropping is definitely going to get us all in a lot of trouble. We need a lot more wildflowers, we need a lot more trees, and we need a lot more fruit-bearing trees. And I think that everybody should plant something for themselves, and the more of it you can plant, the better. Think of growing food like your fitness. Every year it's going to get better and more complicated as you understand more things about it. I think people should be raising rabbits. I think they should be raising guinea pigs. I think they should be raising chickens. I think that there's a lot of stuff that people can do. Quail, they can raise quail, all these other things. But yes, I highly agree. People should be growing their own beans and potatoes, corn, squash, all of those other things. The more care you take in your food, the better. I am staying at this Airbnb and it has a cast iron pan. I love an Airbnb that has a large cast iron pan in it, because now you can like really cook. And for breakfast today, I had steak. And I have steak every day if I can get my hands on it. Steak and beans every day if I can get my hands on it, or steak and squash or something like that. I don't have perfect control over my own diet right now because I travel so much. So you're always going in and you're trying to find a bunch of basic things and combine them in different ways every time. But I do think that people becoming in control of their own food is where we all need to end up eventually. I think that's very important to the world in general. Very important in general. Mark Bradley, I skipped your kettlebell press question. Please answer. Guys, I'm getting a ton of questions here and they roll past. If I missed a question, I'm sorry, but I don't know where your question is at. There are 50 questions up here. Here, Mark Bradley. I own 16 kilogram and 24 kilogram kettlebell. I can't do 75 reps with 16 kettlebell of kettlebell press. How do I get strong enough to press a 16K? Can I train with two hands using the 24K for a while? So there's a huge question there. You have a 16K and you can't press it. Then you need to get down on the ground and start doing floor press. You need to work your way up from there. Or you need to learn to do a push press. Push press, get it up overhead. So there's pure press where you're not using your legs, and there's push press. I don't know anybody who can't get a weight up overhead. I'm unclear on why you can't do that. So if you can't do it and you don't know why you can't do it, go find yourself a lighter weight. Go find yourself a 12 or a 14K, and work on your program with that. Right? Kettlebells are cheap. Surgery is expensive, guys. If you can't get a weight up overhead, a 16K, then my recommendation would be to get a lighter weight or start from the ground up. The best possible thing is to get more weights. Kettlebells are not expensive, right? They last forever. Buy something light and then learn to use it. If you have a 16 and a 24K and you can't press a 16, you're not going to jump to the 24K. You're going to probably need to buy a 20 in the between there, or an 18. The more weights you have, the better off you are going to be. Or learn to push press and learn to lock out. Bells of Steel question. When is the release date for the Wildman Edition adjustable kettlebell? I'll have to call Bells of Steel and ask. They have, I think, 100 competition adjustable bells, and they're Cerakoting them with the Wildman logos and everything. We did check on them, I think, last week, and then they were going to go into production, but I think they should be October. What other types of get-ups here? N. Mills. What other types of get-ups are there outside of Krav get-up? Krav get-up, judo get-up, the rolling get-up. So think Krav get-up, lying down on your back, getting back through with all of your joints pointed straight ahead and getting up. Judo get-up is hitting the ground on the same side and popping back up in a squat and going. So it's essentially after you've been thrown. It's the get-up that happens after you've been thrown. So think Krav get-up is when you get knocked down on your back. Judo get-up is when you've been thrown. So there's a get-up from there. It's very similar. They're all very similar. And then you have rolling get-ups, like from basic parkour, where you vault over something, you touch down in a stagger stance, you absorb force, you go into roll, and you retranslate forward. Those are kind of the three most important ones that I see. Those are the ones that I always work on the most with clients because those are the ones that versions of those three things are in like every movie I've ever seen. The Krav get-up is the real most important one for self-defense. The judo get-up is the most important one for for wrestling. And the rolling get-up is the most important one for escape and evasion. And then the Turkish get-up is inside of that family, and then there's 1,000 versions of Turkish get-up. You can make Turkish get-up sexier forever. You have your normal Turkish get-up, which is the weighted, loaded version of like a Krav get-up. But then you have the squat Turkish get-up. You have a double overhead Turkish get-up, which is incredibly impossible. It's super hard. You have, man, there's so many of those. You can just create new versions of Turkish get-ups all the time. You have the shin box Turkish get-up, which is really just a shin box get-up with a weight overhead. There's a lot of them. The gun get-up, right? Gun get-up is the get-up with two hands on a mace or club or a firearm, where you're not putting your hands on the ground, you're not taking your eyes off the target, and your gun's not coming off target. What other get-ups are there? Those are the ones I think about all the time, because those are the ones that those are the ones that I see the most. In years of doing stunts and everything like that, you see certain patterns that repeat themselves all the time. Like the John Wick guys, the 8711 school, like lots of judo get-ups. They're always doing judo get-ups because they're always doing same side shoulder falls, because that's the fall that goes with all of those fancy throws. Probably the most complex system of throws I've ever seen is out of the 8711 guys, because they have 7 different schools of thought on the top, essentially, with all the Aikido footwork on the bottom. But like the most important thing you need to know for that is judo get-up, or the Krav get-up if they're changing the way that the fight scene is working. The James Brown get-up, sure. The James Brown get-up, that's a comment from Lottie Dottie 71. Sword get-up is really a version of a gun get-up. Question from YouTube Punk. I think I've been singing that YouTube Punk, but now that I look at it, I think it says YouTube Punk. YouTube Punk finally got a pair of flattish, wide box-toe shoes. He thinks he's been walking wrong his whole life. We all have, because we all been wearing modern shoes. My walk used to piss off his drill sergeant. Any advice on how to correct my walk? Go walk barefoot for miles at a time. It's really hard to actually go walk barefoot off trail somewhere. Like out in the West, it's too much cactus. Like, carry things. So the way that I help people work on their walking pattern and their running pattern is I have a treadmill program that I wrote for actors to make them run better, because most people can't run, and to make them run better for camera. And it was based on the idea that I just took the shoes off of them, I put them on a treadmill, I did it 4 times, and then I increased the pace every round. And then I started making them run with objects in their hand, but totally barefoot. If you make people learn to run over again, starting slow, they have to get away from heel strike and they have to go to toe strike. And then that over time corrects their walking pattern, because they get more and more free with their running pattern. And then you ramp it up to the point where they're about to fly off the back of the treadmill. We do it that way because it's perfectly controlled. It forces them into toe, and I can set up a camera and we can look at how their foot functions. And then when we start the program over and we add weight to it, because then that changes the way that they swing their upper body, and by changing the object in their hand, changes the way that they move over and over and over again. Walking drills without seeing your stuff, I have no idea what you're doing wrong, right? Most people walk weird. I walk weird oftentimes if I'm very tired, because my bad leg gets really tired and it starts to do things like drag and everything else, and then I have to focus on standing back up and making my walking pattern good again. But if I don't think about it and I get really tired, if I train a lot, my walking pattern degrades. That's going to happen to all of us over time, but without seeing your specific thing, I can't answer it. Tracy Allen, Turkish get-up question. Suggestions on how to strengthen my legs so I can get up from the kneeling position to standing without holding on to the chair to help me stand. Huge question. Great question. This is what my whole Turkish get-up mastery program is going to have a bunch of drills in there for this. One of the things that we do is we work on half kneeling. You have to start with your standing stuff. You have your standing cleans, your standing clean and presses, but then you also have to have your half kneeling position. Most people can't get up because their body tries to lean forward and shut off their hip when they try to stand up. So I have people get into half kneeling position, and I have them work on cleans again, because that takes the firing from 2 hips to 1 hip, and it forces them to use 1 hip and all the musculature in 1 hip. Then we have them go to the clean and press there. So we do a whole breakout. At the top of the Turkish get-up, clean, press, step back lunge, static lunge. We have the middle, half get-up position, half kneeling position, half kneeling, clean and press, side press, half kneeling windmill, all these other things to force the hip to work. And then the bottom of it, and then we have to have the transition from half kneeling up to top. And so there's a bunch of ways to do that. The hardest way, but the way that everybody tries to skip, is the static lunge. So 1 leg forward, 1 leg back, start with your knee on an ab mat, put a hand on a chair, stand up, straighten both legs all the way out. Do not have both legs bent. This will be really hard for most people. Most people will find they will be unable to straighten either the front leg or the back leg in that position. Their brain won't do it, so we always start with that. You'll notice that this is in body weight training programs that I write, is the static lunge, because this is something that everybody tries to skip. And if you have problems, we start there. Standing clean and press, half kneeling clean and press, static lunge, and then we connect the two together. And we can talk about that topic forever. Like, the whole Turkish Get-Up program is literally written around that idea. Because this is something that I see all the time. Where are we at? What would you recommend for knotted shoulders? Scap, doing clean and press. Already doing puppy dog stretch and prone scorpion from FlowShala. Yeah, those 2 things. And then if you have knots underneath the scap, there's a big thing called an S-hook that people use to reach back there and grab the knot and pull on it. You would find the knot and you would hold it for 2 minutes, and you would do it on both sides, and you would repeat it over time. If you have knots consistently under your scapula, that's the way to do it by yourself, but I'm always going to advocate for body work at this point. Body work, They'll literally reach underneath your scapula, pull it up, and then crush the knots underneath it. It's not comfortable at all. It is a nightmare. But if those knots are consistent from just doing clean and press, then those knots have been there a long time. And you need to have them, you need to get them out. That could be cupping. Cupping is, they use these clear plastic cups. This is a Chinese thing related to gua sha. And they put these cups on your back around those knots, and it creates traction. It literally pulls those knots out away from the body, and you'll end up with these giant purple spots on your back. The more you do it, the less color you'll get in it. But in the beginning, it'll turn like black and blue. But you can either crush the knot. Crush the knot would be an S hook or physical pressure, or thumb or something like that, held for 2 minutes minimum. Body work, where you're spending an hour and somebody's actually tracking through the whole point, or the cupping, where they cup all of those knots on your back and they create traction pulling out away from the body. Cupping is the only thing that I know that can pull out away from the body, which helps the muscle change its patterns, because muscles get tight and they stay tight and then they lock up, and then that whole movement chain goes crazy. So those are the 3 things that I would say work on for that: S hook, body work, and cupping. And then there's a mean version of cupping where they cup, but it's very advanced, where they use a cup and then it creates a vacuum and then they drag it along those muscle fibers. You'll see a lot more professional athletes, and you'll see the spots on their body from cupping now, because it is crazy effective, and it's a super low cost thing to actually do to help get that out. If you can find an acupuncturist in your area who does cupping, acupuncture and cupping will help that. It's not the cheapest thing out there, I know that, but it is drastically cheaper than surgery. The longer you let problems go, the more likely you are to hurt something to the point where you need surgery. The goal is to spend money to stay out of surgery. Surgery costs a fortune, even if you have health insurance. So if you have health insurance and it has X number of physical therapies per year, go use them. Go use them all to work on things like that. I pay my money out of pocket because nobody that I go to takes insurance like that. But it is worth it. I used to spend $10,000 a year on body work for 10 years in order to make sure my body stayed functioning, because that is still cheaper than surgery. I've had 3 surgeries on my leg. The total cost was $150,000. $150,000. Each surgery was $50,000. They just rounded up, right? It was $10,000 for the anesthesiologist, $20,000 for the doctor, $20,000 for just the room, right? And they just rounded up. And so you got a bill for $50,000 for each one of those surgeries, right? That is a lot of body work, right? Just $10,000 is a ton of body work. Put it in your budget. Spend less money on bullshit and make sure your body continues to function. You don't get another one. You don't get another body. You get the one you have. Your goal is to make it function as good as possible, as long as possible. Don't do things that damage you, like people placing their performance above their health. You know, you see this all the time in athletics. I try not to do that anymore. Like, I quit doing bodybuilding stuff years ago because the injury rate was high. Everybody I knew had injuries. The goal is to learn how to train without injuries, to train more, to train better over time. But if you have to spend money on something like getting knots out from underneath your scap, do it now. It will make your life better. I can't advocate for that enough. Changing your mindset around that can be very hard for most people, but staying out of the hospital is always your goal. If you have giant knots underneath your scapula, they're gonna pull on your skull, they're gonna give you headaches, they're gonna overall reduce your quality of life over time. You have to get those things out now. Start with the S hook. I say go to a physical therapist or a body worker or acupuncture and get cupping right away. Right away. And don't go once, go 10 times. Put it in your life and get it done. Here in Europe, health is free. Great, good for you guys. I've been to Europe. I've seen the healthcare system in Romania. I wouldn't get surgery in Romania if I was shot in the head, right? That was the most terrifying place I'd ever seen healthcare. Dental care, fantastic, because it's privatized. I've been in the UK health system. I've been in the Canadian health system. The American health system is better. It is expensive, but it is better. I had a friend who had needed hip replacement surgery in Canada. She waited 2 years and she flew to America to get it done because she needed a replacement hip, and she spent 2 years in a wheelchair because she couldn't get health care in her own country. She flew here and had it done in a day and went back and got all of her post-care in Canada. I know you guys are gonna bitch at us all the time about how superior your health care is and all this other bullshit, but I have yet to see it in your countries. I hear Germany's good. I hear Germany's fantastic. But when I was in the UK, I ended up going to private healthcare there as well, because I could not get in to the healthcare system when I was there. I had an infection in my skull and I was eating apart my brain, and I had to go to private healthcare in order to get the treatment that I needed to not lose my jaw. So you guys can talk about it all you want, but the American healthcare system is expensive, but it is good. But you should spend your money on trying to stay out of the healthcare system. I don't want to rag on you guys too much because you do have healthcare, and I think that that's great. If we could get the quality of healthcare and the innovation of America with the timelines of America, with the freedom of everything else in the world, then that would be the best thing. But I don't see it anywhere that that's going to happen. I don't know anybody who's gotten fast healthcare in Canada, and I know a shit ton of Canadians from being in, there's shit tons of Canadians in LA. Like 90% of the actors I know at some point came through Canada or something. Tons of stunt guys are from Canada as well. You know where they come for healthcare? They come here. They use their SAG healthcare. I've never seen anybody get the treatment they need in a timely manner in Canada, but that's just me. That's just me. I'm sure it happens for people all the time. I'm going to stop bitching about this stuff now. Seriously, some of the healthcare that I saw in Europe was shocking and horrific. I mean, I literally looked like a horror movie set. I took pictures in Europe of some healthcare because I was like, this is a horror movie. Oh, by the way, the nurse was smoking. The nurse was smoking in the hospital. That was my favorite one that I saw in Europe. Reusing needles for IV bags was another one I saw. I was like, wow, we're really pushing the limits here. Question, why are you against lifting 24 KED above your head using 2 hands, imitating kettlebell press? What are you talking about, Mark? This guy's asked a lot of questions and he's not being super nice about how he's asking them. Mark Bradley, why are you against lifting 24K above your head using 2 hands? You can do whatever you want, Mark Bradley. I'm telling you that if you want to have my opinion, then if you can't lift a 16K overhead with 1 hand, you should probably get a weight that you can lift overhead with 1 hand. Go down in weight. Don't let your ego kill you. You could do it any way you want. There's a lot of ways to do anything. But I'm telling you that if you want to have better results and you can't even lift 16K, go ahead and get yourself a lighter weight. If you can't get it up with your shoulder, that's not just your arm that's weak. It's everything else in your body. Your core, your spine, your hip, your knee, something is going to end up snapping. You just need to go down to the point where you can work on the things and try not to hurt yourself. Kettlebells are cheap. Kettlebells are cheap. Surgery is expensive. Surgery is expensive, it's long, and you're never the same afterwards. Just please do something. You can do whatever you want. Learn a push press or whatever. Kenny, U.S. healthcare has saved my life thrice. Yes, U.S. healthcare. Let's get back to this. Cleveland Clinic. You know where everybody in the world, the richest people in the world, fly to get their heart surgeries done? You know where everybody from Dubai and all the billionaires go to get their heart surgery done? Cleveland Clinic. Every single one of them. They have a whole wing just for foreigners to come to over there, because this is still the best place in the absolute world to get heart surgery. Number one, they do all of the basics. They invented all of the techniques. Mark Bradley, this guy's just all over the place. Jesus, dude. Dude, great. Croatian docs are one of the most respected docs in the world. Inform yourself. Okay, Cleveland Clinic's the best hospital in the world. Inform yourself, buddy. Chris's music channel, reaching out from Ohio. Hello, fellow Ohioan. The Ohio Valley is one of the great places in the world that's kind of been forgotten. Like, huge wars and everything were fought over the Ohio Valley. At one point, the Ohio Valley was basically the Garden of Eden. And I would love to see the Ohio Valley return to its once great natural splendor. And I would love to see them plant 1 billion fruit-bearing trees in the medians between the freeways there. I think that that would be amazing. Mark Bradley, still talking trash to everybody. Look at this guy. Dude, seriously, if you have a 16 and a 24K and you can't press it, I don't know what you're complaining about here. Get a lighter weight, dude. Thoughts on chiropractors from N. Mills. Oh, at first, Abdelasar Ibrahim. Hello from Abu Dhabi. Hello, Abu Dhabi. I never got across to Abu Dhabi from Dubai, but I did spend some time in Dubai. I know the kingdoms are all different over there, but I would love to get to Abu Dhabi at some point. I believe that's where ADCC is, if I'm not mistaken. So I would love to get over there with those guys. N. Mills, thoughts on chiropractors. I think chiropractors do an excellent job of helping people get their bones back in place. I've had a lot of success with chiropractors. One time I got a bunch of my ribs knocked out of place in a martial arts tournament. Like, these ribs were pushed in and I was in brutal, crippling pain. I could barely stand, I could barely breathe. I was really messed up. And a chiropractor got them all back in place. I think the thing that's lacking from chiropractors is training. Right? So most people go to chiropractors, but then they never follow up with movement training in order to correct why the problem happened. So chiropractors work very well for most people, but I think doing single arm club, mace, and kettlebells will help people balance out both sides of their body. I stopped needing to go to chiropractors when I started doing kettlebells, clubs, and mace. So before that, when I was really young, and I worked on a farm and everything, and I was doing martial arts and jiu-jitsu and everything and getting thrown all the time, I had several times I had to go to chiropractors to even be able to walk. I was doing conventional fitness then, right? I would do 500 push-ups a day, 500 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, and I would run 5 miles every day. And then I started doing it in a weight vest. None of that stuff makes your core work the way it's supposed to. So at several points in my youth, I threw something out in my back so bad that I couldn't stand or walk or breathe, and I ended up laying on the floor for a week before I finally got into a chiropractor. Chiropractor got things back in place, and that would happen to me off and on until I started kettlebelling much, much later in life. You would go to martial arts, you get thrown into a wall or something, and you would end up back at the chiropractor. My need for chiropractors disappeared entirely once I started doing kettlebells. And when I started doing clubs, I've never had another slip again, even with doing martial arts and everything else. So I think chiropractors are good, but I think they're a stopgap measure. And I think that the need for them decreases over time the more you learn single arm cross body throwing pattern stuff. But I do think that they are necessary to help people who've been injured get back functioning properly. Yes, he says, Ibrahim says that the ADCC and the UFC is in Abu Dhabi. I got to get over there for that sometime. I would love to go to ADCC and see that ADCC is like one of the greatest jiu-jitsu tournaments in the world. My friend Will over at BJJ Fanatics worked over there on it for several years. So you watch fights from that. The fights there are incredible. It's the best athletes from all over the world. It's an incredible, incredible tournament, and I would love to get over there for that some year. I think it's every 2 years. It's not yearly, it's every 2 years. And they have a very interesting system where the guy who won at the last tournament gets to skip all of the fights to get directly into the final, I think, if I remember correctly. And then you get a new guy who works his way up through all these fights to get to the championship and fights the previous guy. It's super cool. ADCC is absolutely incredible. It's definitely pushed the world of jiu-jitsu forward rapidly in a crazy way. These worldwide tournaments and the passage of information between Instagram and all these other ways of sharing information now has driven the art of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and just wrestling in general higher, I think, in the last 10 years than in 100 years prior to that, because the amount of information is cascading and going and rolling much faster. So in ADCC is like where the best of the best go, and that's what's like really pushing forward the game. I wish I could find a really good jiu-jitsu school and go to it all the time, but I travel so much, I never get to do it. I only get to do drop-in classes here or there and just get my ass handed to me, but that's fun anyway. But it's good. It's great that there are all these things that are out there that are pushing every sport forward through this sharing of information and technology. What are your thoughts on the torque sled or sleds in general as a conditioning and longevity tool to coincide with kettlebells, maces, and clubs? I love torque sleds. This is a question from Mark Kelly. I love sleds, pulling sleds in general. And I think that they're a fantastic way if you can put them in twice a week for 10 minutes of pushing, 10 minutes of pulling. And there's a million programs you can write with that. Do I think that people should do that before kettlebells or clubs? Absolutely not. I see a lot of people pushing on torque sleds or sleds in general who have absolutely terrible alignment, and they're trying to use it to build their general physical preparedness without having any of their basic movement patterns. So I would put it lower on priority list than kettlebells, clubs, and maces. I would put it somewhere under that. And I think it's fantastic if you already have good alignment. I don't think there's anything probably better or faster for helping people work on their sprinting dynamics than pushing a sled. So I think that they're absolutely fantastic. And as a general physical preparedness tool, I think they're really good, but I think that they come underneath kettlebells and clubs. I love watching them though. I love seeing all that. I love watching sled work. I just never get to do it. Once again, most places don't have a place to do sleds. And if you travel a lot, if you don't have your sled with you, then it's a hard thing to travel. And it's a hard thing to find. And so whatever workout you end up doing at home, if you travel all the time like I do, this ends up being a fun workout, but it's not something I can really put into a progression because I don't have the time or the energy to do it that way. Club question. Is it cool to go clubbing with a club? I want to get my dance on and be fit at the same time. Sure. Yes, you can. Why not? Just don't get thrown out. Jeremy McHon. He's been doing kettlebells and single arm club and recently started to experience a lot of tightness in his hip flexors. Should he drop weight, focus on mobility, or do both? You should do both. You should drop weight and focus on hip mobility. And you should put in your half kneeling clean and press stuff and your half kneeling shield casts. Like hip tightness, does that mean that you're just not doing your stretching at the end of the workout? Because I don't know why that should be causing hip tightness. It sounds to me like you're not doing your hip flexor stretch for 2 minutes on each side at the end of your workout. If you have tight hip flexors, if you're feeling tightness in your hip flexors, you absolutely have to be doing 2 minutes minimum of stretching at the end of every workout. Coaching question. You've mentioned you're not a fan of generic fitness certifications. How does one market themselves if they don't have certs? Would seminars be a good alternative? Sure. I mean, I gave up on all the generic fitness certs years ago, and if somebody tells me they have those and they act like that's a point of pride, then I ignore them entirely. If somebody tells me they have like an ACE personal training certification or something, I literally couldn't care less. I would actually be super skeptical of that. Check, what time am I at here? Oh yeah, I still got time. Um, NASM has some good trainer education, or they used to. And going, if somebody has 3 certifications from NASM, I would say that they have they have a good understanding of training, but I would assume that that person has no understanding of movement patterns. The way that I look at people's Instagrams to see if I would train with them or not. I look at their movement patterns. I look at their history of stuff. And I evaluate people entirely based on that. How do you market yourself? I think you just market yourself as a coach. I don't, a lot of gyms require all those normal certifications to work there. But that's just so that they have some whole other thing that they're doing, right? Gym trainers, for the most part, are being paid to eat time. Like, I was just at Gold's and I'm watching the personal trainers over there, and they're checking their phone, they're talking, they're like texting, like they're not really coaching. They're just putting a person on a machine, collecting money, and not really doing the job that they're being paid to do, which I find very dishonorable in general. So the more certs somebody has, like conventional certs, the more I know that they're making an effort to go the right direction. They're doing what they're being told to do in order to try to get better at their job. Good coaches, I think, eventually turn into movement trainers over time. And like, I used to have a bunch of NASM certs and NCSF or whatever those things are, because that's what we were all told to do. And then we got kettlebell certifications, and then we were like, oh, this is how you actually help people. And then I got clubs, and I was like, oh my God, this is not 1,000 times better than anything you could possibly do in the gym. So we're only going to focus on this now. But marketing yourself, I think the most important thing is that you actually know what you're talking about, so that when people come to you, you can clearly explain what and why you're doing and why it's important. That's the most important thing in coaching. What are you coaching? How fast is it? How long is it going to take? And why is it important? Scroll back up here. There's some Aisha Small, bodyweight question. Can some movements from your mobility program be turned into conditioning with use of a weighted vest? Most mobility training I would not turn into a weighted vest program. So mobility training is really trying to get joints to move better themselves. So mobility training, think of that as isolating joint structure movement, as opposed to movement training or bodyweight training where you're working on movement patterns for specific reasons. I think that I can't think of a way to turn, like, your neck mobility, putting on a weight vest, and that's not really a conditioning exercise anyway. You can put on your weight vest to do your mobility training, but does that turn it into conditioning? I think not. I think it turns it into loaded mobility training. Mobility training doesn't have an end goal purpose. The goal of mobility training is to move your shoulder better. The goal of bodyweight training is to do a get up better. So they're different goals. So it's an interesting idea, but I don't see a good way to do that. Like, if you're going to do loaded mobility training, there's a lot of band stuff that you can do, which is loaded mobility training. Iron neck can be all your neck stuff, generally loaded at different force vectors. There's a product I have to review, but it's back in Ohio, where it allows you to put weights on the side of your head, so you can do mobility training and by changing the angle. But that does not really turn them into conditioning programs. That helps you strengthen specific muscle patterns, so you could condition those muscles better. But when I think of the word conditioning, I'm thinking of like speed, power, endurance. I'm thinking of that as conditioning. So maybe I'm not understanding your question right, but I would leave weight vest for movement patterns, for movement objective patterns. Mobility programs can get better. So like pole dancing, like competitive pole dancing has taken mobility and pushed it so far that it becomes conditioning, but that's hyper specific. And I would not add weight vest to a pole dancing mobility program anyway, because that's the antithesis of the end goal. I hope I answered that question, Aisha. S.A. Dowdell, bodyweight programming question. Do you recommend working through Bodyweight 101 basics program before launching into Krav 1, or you can just dive into Krav get-ups? Yeah, you can just dive into Krav get-ups. So all these things are set up to, all the bodyweight programs are set up to be standalone. Bodyweight 101 is there because I wanted to put something below Krav get-up. Because originally I wrote Krav get-up first, and I wrote Bodyweight 101 as an answer to Krav, to help people move towards doing Krav 1. You could alternate them back and forth for sure. That would be a fantastic way to do it. Bodyweight 101, Krav, Krav. Start with Bodyweight 101, get through at least 4 of those workouts first, so you can go back and start Bodyweight 101 with the second timing protocol. So you end up with a different program, a different protocol on each day. Then Krav 1 would be 30-30, Bodyweight 101 would be 20-10. Now that is a killer program. That is a killer program all on its own. But yeah, you could just launch into it. It might not work out great for you, but you could go back and do Bodyweight 101 after. The idea of all of the bodyweight programs is they're all supposed to be end goal objective oriented with those. Because I'm trying to get people to work on one whole idea in each thing, because I see a lot of other programs, bodyweight programs, that have just no point at all. And people do a bodyweight training for years and they never just learn how to get up off the ground. So I'm trying to make those programs more end goal oriented, because I'm trying to solve that problem of people living in the modern world not having basic human movement patterns. Chris's music channel. With more affordable Chinese knockoff of So Rights, should anyone still pay $80 for the Made in USA version? Absolutely. Made in USA is a good thing. It doesn't matter if you just want to support people who work in your own country and having industry in your own country. I don't think we should export skills around the world. I think we ourselves should maintain skills. The more we push things off around the world, the less we have those skills here in America, and we're paying shipping costs all the way across the ocean. Whether you want to look at it as a green option or a skills option, I think that if you should spend the money on American-made gear, 100%. I would rather pay more money, because $80 in the modern world, the rate of inflation is not high. You know, I went to Thai food yesterday, it was $30, right? For just me alone, right? I went to the grocery store this morning, it was $40 for me to get steak and eggs for the day, right? The world is expensive. Buying something that's gonna last your entire life for $80, I think we need to reframe the way we look at that. Would it be great if it was $10? Yes, but I think that also pro kettlebells are a better kettlebell product than all the Chinese competition kettlebells. And I'd rather have them made in the USA, and I'd rather pay more for something that's gonna last 100 years made in the USA. If I have to pay an extra $100 for it, it doesn't bother me that much. There are people on a budget, but I recommend people on a budget get better gear, not worse gear. Better gear lasts longer, and you're more likely to get what you want out of it. By getting the cheapest possible stuff, oftentimes it's not very good, or it's not well designed or something, and then you end up having to buy it again. At that point, you should have just bought the expensive gear the first time. Can we run with weighted vests? Absolutely, 100%. Question from Mark Bradley. Can you run with weighted vests? Absolutely, 100%. Historically, that's the way people ran. This whole idea that you can't run with weight is a really modern idea. And that's why I'm a big advocate. As people run, they need to work on their running technique. They work on their barefoot running technique, because a lot of the problems will solve themselves on accident. Then I advocate people start running with objects in their hand, maces, balls, med balls, slam balls, things like that, so that they can work on how they run with sandbags. And then after that, I advocate running in vests, 100%. Your average loadout, a light loadout for a soldier in the military is 50 pounds. So people should be able to run with that weight. Throughout history, the weight of gear historically has been in the 70-pound range, up and down from that, getting lighter and heavier. But an average loadout, there's a whole couple of videos on this on YouTube, across history, is like 70 pounds. So you should be able to move in 70 pounds, and you should be able to do short-term distance for sure. Should you run a marathon in 70-pound weight vest? Probably not. But should you be able to run a 400-meter sprint in a 30-pound weight vest? Absolutely. I don't think that that's bad at all. But only if you've done the prep work to get there. Just starting out running in a vest without doing all the prep work, not good at all. And that's most people in the modern world. People are sold the idea of these 6-week programs that are really short and they're going to get in great shape in 6 weeks or whatever. But that's not true. It's a lifetime of training. So throwing in weighted runs is an excellent idea after you've done all the other work. If your spine is strong enough, just the problem that most people have is they try to skip all the work and go right to the end goal. And then that is probably bad. Hi, Mark, do you have a date for your overweight program? We're releasing the first part of it, I think, in November. We shot a bunch of it. It's all done. It's just in edit. Adjustable kettlebell question. So let me go back to that. So we have Turkish Get Up coming out first. That's September. We have the two-handed massive club coming out in October. And then it's going to be into the training for overweight individuals program. But I'm trying to release them in the order that I wrote them and shot them, because I've been trying to get Turkish Get Up off my plate for 2 years now. So I need to get it off my plate. I need to get it totally edited so I don't have to think about it anymore. I talk about it, but it's not out. I talk about it like it's out because I've been thinking about it for 2 years. I talk about two-handed club the same way. That just needs to be out so I can get it out there. But all these programs are eventually going to go in a line from overweight individuals all the way through. That is the goal, is to give people a starting point, and then people can either jump in on swings, clean, and press, which is what they have now, or they can jump in on kettlebell basics, or they can jump in on TOI. And the programs are all meant to roll together over time so that people will have a 5 to 10 year plan when they start, from the day they start. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. And if you're in better shape or if you're not overweight, then you can jump in at these other levels. But all of these programs are going to go together in a giant, long, laid out line to get people from absolute zero up to 100%. And then the 80-90% programs are going to start being shot in November, I think. And we're going to start building in more of the body weight training stuff. And then we're going to start doing the advanced MACE programs. We're going to start shooting them in November. And what those are is objective-oriented MACE programs where we pick a pattern, we rip it apart onto all of its component pieces, and then we're going to write like 20 of those. And they are going to be small 6-week programs based on the foundation of all these other things so that people learn this one specific skill in a program just about this one thing. Yeah. So TOI is supposed to be coming out in November. YouTube observation. Please consider designating someone as a moderator for your Q&As. Yeah, that would be great. I don't have anybody. If anybody wants to volunteer to moderate my Q&As, that would be great. I'm constantly running around the world. I don't have anybody to help me with this stuff, so I'm pretty much doing 90% of this stuff alone. So if somebody wants to volunteer to moderate these things, then absolutely, I'll take it. Mark Kelly just completed his SIMSPA Level 3 personal training course. Who would you recommend for certification in kettlebells and maces? In kettlebells, I would tell you Go do strong first. Pavel's program. I don't agree with everything that they say, but their intro stuff is the best on the planet. They are really heavy on iron body technique and heavier weights and staying with the basics, whereas I recommend going to a certain point and then branching off towards sport technique and learning to not put the weight down. But strong first is the benchmark. That is what RKC turned into strong first. So they are 100% the people that you should go to for kettlebells, bar none. And then after that, probably Cotter. Strong first is the easier one. Cotter is much more advanced. Cotter, and then I'm going to start one next year probably that focuses on the way that I think about it, but that is definitely the one that you need to be doing. For maces, I can't think of anything right now. There's a lot of mace stuff out there, but a lot of the mace stuff doesn't focus on the basics as I see it. So I don't have a recommendation for that currently. Adjustable kettlebell question. Enlighten me as to why adjustable competition kettlebells start at 12 kilos. Because that's how heavy they are. So a competition kettlebell shell is 12K, and then they're adding weights inside of that. There is going to be a product coming out, I believe, from next year from Pro Kettlebell, where they get lighter than that. There is not an adjustable bell currently that I know of that works really well under 12K. I could just not know about it. I am being sent some light bells, I believe 4s and 12s from prokettlebell.com, so I can check on those. But there are 6K kilo kettlebell competition bells out there, and Pro Kettlebell is putting out a 4K. But they had to change the materials from iron to aluminum and to adjust the dimensions and stuff. It's just not a lot of companies have put the work into that because they're skipping over that part of the market. ProKettlebell.com is not skipping that part of the market, which is why I love those guys. Those guys have designed an absolutely superior product, and they're making bells for absolutely everybody at every type of experience level, and I think that that is good. That's what we need to reward companies for, is for actually doing their job well. So right now, that product doesn't exist. Will it exist next year? I believe that there will be a version of that next year. People are still fighting about healthcare down here. Hamstring question. What do you recommend for better hamstring flexibility, mobility, so I can bear crawl like you? Well, you need to do all of your swings, right? Most people try to get into something like bear crawl without having any hamstring firing, right? So swing program, clean and press program, and then you need to be holding at least 2 minutes of forward fold every single day. And then after that, some version of light Jefferson curl, standing on a box, holding a super light kettlebell in your hand, straight leg going down and standing all the way up with a rounded spine, one vertebrae at a time. That is how you would get to being able to do good bear crawls. Martial arts question. Can staff training be done alone? Absolutely. You can work on your movement patterns with staff training, and that's staff forms. Can you work on the way that I do it? OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act? Absolutely not. I would love to get some company to build me a robot like sparring robots from Star Wars, but it doesn't exist. No, that would be it would be $1 million project or something like that. The way that I teach staff is very specific, and it requires a partner. It is observe, orient, decide, act. Observe something coming at you, orienting your body to face the threat, deciding to do something about it, and then acting and then responding. You can work on staff forms yourself. I tend to lead people into kettlebells and clubs before staff because it's the basic movement patterns, but people trained with staff for thousands of years as a basic human movement skill So you can absolutely do that. Chinese martial arts staff patterns are the best patterns. You just got to stay away from the super fancy like monkey ones or whatever, because they have a very specific style of movement that is not really what I consider a basic type of human movement. But you can train your basic movement patterns yourself with staff, yes. Can you train it the way I train it? Absolutely not. Chris's music channel, yes. Get that made in America stuff if you can. It's the best stuff out there. I don't think we need to be shipping stuff all the way across the sea from China. You know, if we have energy issues in our country, I'm in California right now, there's like no power here, right? You're supposed to turn off your power from like 5 to 9. You're not supposed to do any laundry in the middle of the day. Like, we don't need to be shipping stuff across the ocean if we can make it right here and pay a little bit more money. I would rather pay people more money to make it here and not ship it across the ocean than I would to have them give it to me cheap across the ocean. We should all be planting trees, growing our own food, and getting stuff as locally as possible. Some things we can't get locally yet, like competition adjustable bells. Eventually, we should be doing that. I like things like the Dakota Foundry, because they're doing made in America casting and all of that other stuff here. They're maintaining those skills. Iron casting is a skill, and we should not let that skill go. Making plastic molds is a skill, and we should not let that skill go. A lot of things need to be done here, and they need to not be done elsewhere. We need to maintain our skills, all of us, individually. We need to know how to sharpen our own knives, you know, simple things, grow our own food. Hell, I would love to do a video where we make our own cast iron pans from an old pan. Like, just got to get around to doing that stuff and have more money and time. Wait, I'm not sure I understand this question. GDIP. Was wondering what percentage of exertion you should recommend putting into each workout for consistency. 60 to 80% exertion is the number that we always say. You'll notice I write all my programs as waves that go up and down, and the intensity and the load varies every day in a very specific manner. People should not be training to failure every day, because you can't go about living your own life after that. If you train to failure, that means you need a 3-hour nap afterwards. And people don't have time for that. You need to be training at 60 to 80% a day so you can train 6 days a week, so you can stay consistent, so you can get 5% better every day, so that you can build up over time. Eventually, the goal is just to put in an hour into your training every day. Like for me today, I had a fun day. I did 22 minutes without putting a kettlebell down. That was my warm-up, but I could have been done right there. And then I went and I walked around the gym and I saw what was in there, and I tried a bunch of other stuff and a bunch of other ideas out. But when I got to an hour, I did my stretching and I walked back. People should be putting in an hour a day. But if you put in max effort, you will not survive 5 minutes. Most people will not survive 30 seconds of max effort, because that's what max effort means. So you should be putting in 60 to 80% a day. Exertion level. Mark Bradley, he runs 12.8 kilometers using a 24 kilogram vest. Good or bad? I don't know. What's your cooldown like? That's a good vest. So that's up in the 53-pound weight range. That's an excellent run, 12.8 kilometers. I would say, yeah, twice a week, 2 days a week of unloaded, and then do all your other stuff every day. But then if you're running that much, you should be putting in 30 minutes into cool down for sure, because that's a lot of load. Question from Stefan Sutherland. Just got one 8X club. How useful is 1 versus 2? Stick with 1 for a long time. You have to do all your 2-handed club training up to 50 pounds. 2-handed club to 50 pounds, and then single arm club training up to 30 pounds. After that, you can get a second one. After that, get a second one, sure. Club question from Gradzillas. On Europe, we don't have access to adjustable clubs. Do you think we can run a club program with an adjustable mace like the one from Omnibell? Sure. As long as you're not crushing your toes, You can do that. That means you're going to have to choke up on it probably. I want straight arms on the bottom portion of the swing because I want you to traction your elbows. This is the reason I tell people to do clubs instead of mace in the beginning, because if people do mace and they have bad elbows and they try to do the swing across the middle and they flex their elbows, they will thrash their elbows off over time. The point is to have straight arms on the swing across the bottom. If you can do that with the Omni Bell, then do that. It's just going to mean you're going to have to be smarter, and I have faith in you to do that. Quality content. Thank you, Sean Hibbs. How would you go about running a group-based kettlebell class? Really easy. Group-based kettlebell class is super simple. It would set up and you would do your warm-ups. You have your 8 minutes of warm-ups. Everybody follows along. Then you would have them do 5 minutes of introductory stuff like deadlifts and suitcase deadlifts, maybe box goblet squats, and that could be 5 to 8 minutes long. And then you would have them do something like 10 minutes of swings, and everybody moves together. The clock starts, and then you would have them build into, say, pick 3 movements, demonstrate it to them, have everybody try it, demonstrate it again, have everybody try it again, and then I would set up a timer and turn it into a time under tension, and you could fill 50 minutes with that easily. And you could keep your 8-minute warm-up, your warm-up lifting, your swing block could change and become a clean and press block or a snatch block or something like that, depending on the level of your athletes. Clean blocks are really fun because people need to be good at cleans. And then you have focused movement pattern at the end, and you would build a movement pattern at the end, and you would do all the movements for that, and you would turn that into time under tension. OODA loop question from Veket Xian. What are good resources for learning more about OODA loop? You look this up. OODA loop is originally invented by an Air Force pilot. I think it was back during Korea, Vietnam maybe. Observe, orient, decide, act. Look up OODA loop. There are tons of videos on it. This is something that is talked about a lot in martial arts theory recently, not in Tony Blauer, Be Your Own Bodyguard, talks about this a lot. He's got a ton of stuff on this, I think, if I remember correctly. You read a lot about this in tactical firearms training. I got it from a coach named James Yeager originally, and he changed the way that I taught everything in martial arts, because I used to teach in a traditional way, and I wanted to know why I wasn't as good as I should be, and why my clients weren't as good as they should be. And he changed the way I thought about it, from teaching people a specific series of patterns to teaching them to make their own decisions. So look up OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. There's a Wikipedia on it. Start with that and go out from there. Kettlebell question. Can you elaborate on your goblet squat technique? At CF, CrossFit, I learned to rest the bell on my chest, but intuitively like having them, like you say, arms out. But why? How did you come up with it? So CrossFit is different than the way I teach. CrossFit is teaching everything like it's barbell technique, right? So they invented a bunch of shit that's not in normal kettlebelling because they're trying to support their barbell technique with it. So they hold the handle high, the globe low, and they rest it on their chest in order to do a lot of stuff. I teach it like it's clubs because I'm teaching clubs, kettlebell, and mace in the same base through line. So I'm considering everything club, they're considering everything barbell. So I teach my goblet squat with an order position because it encourages people to sit down lower at the back and get into things like deck squat and non-rolling deck squat, because those are part of get-ups. CrossFit doesn't care about that. Editing myself. CrossFit doesn't care about that. They're trying to get people better at barbell technique, not at deck squats. I'm deck squat focused, club focused, they're not. So our differences in technique are based on our end goals. So I teach everything from my lens, they teach everything from their lens. I teach everything as if you're training in a barn on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere with a limited amount of equipment. They train everything as if you have an Olympic barbell set up and a monster rack and a set of rings. So we have different end goals and different equipment needs, so we are training differently. I see a lot of people try to do the CrossFit version, but a lot of people in CrossFit would benefit from doing things like clubs because they don't have any casting patterns in CrossFit. So I do everything to support casting patterns and they don't. That's the difference. They do it a different way. I wouldn't teach it that way, but who am I to argue with the fittest people on the planet? They are monsters and they will run all of us into the ground. So I don't tell CrossFit people how to do things. They don't tell me how to swing clubs. We have our own end goals. Yeah, Kenny says go for the clear coating on pro kettlebells if they're not going to live indoors. I did learn that. I had uncoated bells and I left them in the barn and they got eaten up, which doesn't bother me at all. I like my bells to be all cool and sexy, but the clear coat is a good idea on the pro kettlebell thing. Thank you, Maul, for the donation. Maul says he wants to moderate. Excellent. Sure, I don't know. I'll have to figure out how to get people to moderate. I'll have to look that up and watch some videos on it and figure out what I don't know, because I apparently don't know anything about how to moderate these things. We're going to have to cut this off here in a minute. I have to go to a business lunch here, but I'm trying to get through a bunch of these here. Guys, if you want to contact me to discuss stuff, contact me on Instagram. They get shunted into several different things on Instagram, but I try to get to everybody if I can over time. I'm just not always the fastest with these things. Just discovered you 2 days ago. Rome Sizzle. Got it, Rome Sizzle. What is your best program for weight loss? Been doing swings for 5 weeks. After swings, go to clean and press. After clean and press, go to two-handed club. People need to learn to lose weight by adding more muscle. Adding more muscle means getting better at programs, adding weight, and then doing more reps. So I try not to have a specific weight loss goal. I try to have movement pattern goals. All of our stuff will work for weight loss. So the goal is to get you working out for an hour, 6 days a week. We start with something like swings because it's the most basic thing to build our strength. Then we go to clean and press because people need to learn to stand all the way up, and they will build up their endurance crossbody stabilization abs in order to be able to survive more cardio intense things later on. So if you ran swings and clean and press, swings 2 days a week, clean and press 2 days a week, you're on your way. Then run two-handed club mill squat program 2 days a week. And then if you want to do more work above that, above the swings, then you would put in body weight training after swing training 2 days a week. Now you're starting to build up. And then if you want it, so body weight 101, 2 days a week, and then we can add Krav get up 101 after the clean and press 2 days a week. Now you're on a strategy to not only lose weight, but to get vastly stronger, improve your movement patterns, and do all your basic human skills. All of these programs are coming out in order because they're all going to stack together, and they're going to help you build muscle, get much better strength, and more cardio so that you can endure longer. The longer you endure, the more you breathe. The more you breathe, the more carbon comes out of your body, the more fat you burn. Michael Lowe. Thanks for your channel, of course, Michael. Question, since starting doing single arm club work, my knee pain has improved substantially. It definitely will. Can you explain this? What happens? Yes, so I'm such a huge advocate of single arm club training because it will solve 90% of your problems on accident. Ankles, knees, hip, back, spine, shoulder, elbow, wrist, right? It'll solve tons of problems on accident. So when you point your feet straight ahead and you start doing single arm club training, you're swinging that weight. So as the weight goes out, your arm hits extension. It stretches out. It starts going, your tendons and your ligaments come underload. Same with your shoulder. You swing across every time you catch. Your core stabilizes. Your core fires when the weight moves out, as it swings across pelvic floor, when you pull the weight in and when you rotate across. It's all core. It's all shoulder therapy movements. It's all elbow traction movements. It's all wrist movements. The same thing is true from your feet up. You point your feet straight ahead and you start swinging weights. If you put a camera on somebody's foot when they're doing single arm club, you will see they're doing the same, their body is trying to do the same movement that they do in ankle rehab. The big toe tries to contract in, the arch of the foot tries to fire, the ankle points straighter ahead, and the knee starts trying to rotate and stabilize as it goes up through the body. The more you repeat single arm club training, the better your ankles, knees, hip will get, the stronger your core will get. So you run the program, you go up in weight, you run it again, you go up in weight, you run it again. Your knee pain should go down substantially by just having all the muscles in your knee fire every time you catch that weight, every time it swings across. This is what the knee should do other than running. Yes, it absolutely works. Every muscle in your body is integrated together. So by training movement patterns, not muscles, you find the weakest link, the thing that doesn't want to work, and you make it all work the same. And then everything in your body becomes equally as strong. Then everything balances out, then pain goes away. Side effect is you get better at moving and at standing up and at breathing. You build endurance, which is the unification of structure, breathing, and movement, right? The fact that this has not gone global mainstream and everybody on the planet isn't club swinging is shocking to me. That is our goal, to get the education out there, to explain to people why to do this, because I think most of the problems in the modern world would go away if we all went back to club swinging and kettlebell swinging for 30 minutes a day. All the problems that people have that they need to get surgery for, the back problems would vanish. 60% of the population in the Western world has back pain. That would go down to like 1% of people who actually had been physically injured and by like dramatic impact. 59% of that simply doesn't need to exist, right? It should all go away by restoring basic human movement patterns. Knee pain goes away, ankle pain goes away, collapsed arches disappear, shoulder pain vanishes. Just from learning to reinstitute basic movement patterns and doing it in a proper, logical way should solve all these problems. One more question, guys, here. KD, club question. For those unable to afford a kettlebell and only have an 8X club, is there any way to do two-handed deadlifts and suitcase deadlifts with a club? If so, can you add them to your videos to-do list, please? Clubs are simply not heavy enough to deadlift, right? For the most part, they're an intermediate weight with intermediate complexity. Think of a kettlebell as a heavier weight, think of barbell as a very heavy weight. You wouldn't do deadlifts, you would do swings. So instead of doing a suitcase deadlift, you would do an outside swing to order, or you would do a Discobolus of Myron swing to order, right? And then you would do a pullover, right? So you're not going to deadlift clubs the same way that you do it because the weight is different. You're going to swing through those movement patterns, and you're going to do front to back swing cleans. You're going to do outside swing cleans. You're going to do cross body swing cleans. Those are your deadlift replacements with clubs, where you're not moving it in a straight line. You're moving it in an arc or an angle. The goal is to get to either a swing to a catch, which is a swing clean, and then to do that in all directions, front to back, outside, same side, outside, opposite side, and then swinging laterally in front, side to side to swing, low to high, clockwork swing. All of those are all your replacements for deadlift done with club. So lighter weight, much more complexity, lots of rotations, learning to not put the weight down on the ground. Same family of movements as a deadlift, but done differently. Learning to swing weights gives you endurant deadlift strength, but not deadlift pure power, right? So which one is better? I think moving is better. I would put deadlifting down lower on a scale of what's necessary. I would always put swinging weights higher up, whether it be kettlebells or clubs. But if you have an 8X club, you should be running your mill squat program. The two-handed program will be out in October. You should run that. If you have an 8X club, you have 7 years worth of stuff to do. If you don't have the money to get a kettlebell, get a sandbag, right? Save up, eventually get yourself a kettlebell, but get a 50-pound or 100-pound sandbag from Bells of Steel. Now, deadlift that and deadlift a hug squat. Now run slam ball program with that. That will be your deadlift replacement. There are always cheaper options out there. We just want to make sure we're not being too cheap. We know you're not too cheap because you got the 8X Club. You got the best possible thing out there. So my job is to get you more programming to go with that thing so that you have years of training to do. That's my job, right? That's coming. In the meantime, get yourself a Bells of Steel sandbag and start power cleaning that. All right, guys, I got to get off here. I'm getting texted from people about work, and I need to get on the road. Motorcycle ride in the heat, always good stuff. Got to have a little bit of adventure every single day of your life. Get out there, find a road you've never been on, go someplace you've never been, talk to people you've never talked to, learn new skills. This is the most important thing you can do. Go down a road you've never been on. Bicycle, walk. I love motorcycles because you can go really far, really fast. Ride a horse. Get back out into the world. Be in control of your own fitness. Try to be in control of your own food and be in control of what you're doing. Thank you very much and have a good day.